الله النور بسم الله النور بسم الله النور بسم الله النور بسم الله نور النور بسم الله النور.
Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
It's great to be back.
Today we're going to be looking at, I think, a pretty fascinating topic, and that is the concept of the clarifying book, specifically as mentioned in verse 44.2 of Surah Al-Dukhan.
Okay.
Now, just to set the stage for everyone listening,
Yeah.
we'll be referencing Tafsir Hubbi Ali as our primary source for this deep dive. And this tafsir actually makes a really bold claim right from the start.
Right away.
It interprets the clarifying book in this verse to be none other than Imam Ali alayhi salam.
Wow.
So we're going to explore that interpretation, in detail. And of course,
Sure.
we'll be weaving in other Quranic verses and relevant hadiths from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Those make sense.
To really get a comprehensive understanding of how this idea is presented.
Yeah. And that's interesting because, right away in the beginning, the source is already sort of setting the stage.
Yes.
And giving us this lens through which to understand this surah, right?
Absolutely. And that's what makes it so intriguing.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you encounter that interpretation, it kind of sets you on a specific path of exploration.
Right.
And I mean, before we even dive into the verses themselves, the source mentions that reciting this surah, Surah Al-Dukhan, brings about incredible rewards.
Yeah. I know. That's always, a great incentive, right?
It is.
To start off with.
Like, it mentions the reward being equivalent to freeing 100,000 slaves.
Yeah.
For each letter recited.
Wow.
And then you have, like, the forgiveness of sins and protection from Satan.
Right.
I mean, it makes you wonder, like, what is it about this surah that warrants such blessings?
Exactly. And it just speaks to the, the reverence and the importance given to this particular surah.
Absolutely. So with that context,
Yeah.
just for anyone who might not be familiar with the term tafsir,
Right.
it simply means interpretation of the Quran.
That's right.
So when we refer to Tafsir Hubbi Ali, it's essentially a compilation of interpretations of the Quran.
Yeah.
Coming from a tradition that holds the Ahlul Bayt, alayhum salam, in very high regard.
Okay.
As the authoritative sources for understanding the deeper meanings of the Quran.
That makes sense.
So let's jump into the surah itself.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Verses 3 to 5 specifically talk about a blessed night.
Okay.
And I was really fascinated by how the source connects this to the night of predetermination, Laylat al-Qadr.
Interesting.
So what's the significance of that connection?
So the source gives us an esoteric interpretation, which might be something new for some listeners.
Okay.
So it explains that Hamim, which appears at the beginning of the surah, represents Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Okay.
The clarifying book, as we discussed, is interpreted as Imam Ali alayhi salam.
Right.
The blessed night is seen as a symbol for Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam, the Prophet's daughter.
Okay.
And then every wise matter made distinct refers to the Imams alayhum salam.
Wow. So it's like a hidden code within the verse.
Exactly. It's looking at the Quran on multiple levels. It's going beyond just the literal words.
Yeah. And how does this then tie into Laylat al-Qadr?
So the night of predetermination is believed to be the night where Allah Azza wa Jal decrees the destinies
Oh, wow.
of creation for the entire year.
So everything is set in motion.
That's the belief according to many hadiths.
Wow.
And it's not just, random events happening. It's said that each matter has a distinct order from Allah Azza wa Jal.
That level of precision is mind-boggling.
It's quite amazing.
But how does that then bring us back to the Blessed Night symbolism?
So remember how the Blessed Night is interpreted as Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam.
Right.
Some scholars believe that this connection points to a special role of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam in understanding and transmitting the divine decrees revealed on Laylat al-Qadr.
So it's not just about Allah Azza wa Jal deciding things on this night.
Right.
But it's also about how that knowledge is conveyed to humanity through the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam.
Precisely. And you see this further emphasized in hadiths that describe how the Imams alayhim salam receive these decrees
every year
by year.
That makes me think about the weight of that knowledge.
It's a huge responsibility.
Right, like to be privy to those divine secrets.
Absolutely.
Must have been incredible.
It really highlights their role as guides.
Yeah.
As interpreters of Allah's will for humanity.
And, Laylatul al-Qadr isn't just about destiny.
That's right.
It's also a night of immense spiritual opportunity.
Exactly.
The hadiths emphasize that, righteous deeds performed on this night are more valuable than those done in 1,000 months.
Powerful incentive.
It is. But is it just about individual actions? Or does it have broader implications as well? So the source also brings up a specific proclamation on this night for those who visit the grave of Imam al-Hussein, alayhi salam. Okay. So it suggests that Laylatul al-Qadr is not just about personal piety, it's also about recognizing and honoring the sacrifices of those who upheld truth and justice. It adds another layer to it, doesn't it? It does. It connects our own striving to that broader struggle for righteousness that the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam represented. It reminds us that our actions aren't isolated. They're part of a larger spiritual tapestry. I like that a lot. Woven across time. Before we move on, I'm going to go back to something you mentioned earlier. Okay. About the Quran being understood on multiple levels. Right. Can you expand on that a bit? Sure. So in Islamic tradition, the Quran is often interpreted on two levels. Okay. The exoteric, zahir, and the esoteric, batin. Okay. The exoteric level refers to the literal meaning of the words. Right, the surface level. Yes, the one that's accessible to everyone. Right. But there's also a deeper hidden meaning, the batin. And this is believed to be accessible to those with spiritual insight and guidance. It's like that iceberg analogy. That's a good one. The visible part is exoteric. Yeah. And then that vast underwater portion is the esoteric. Exactly. And this concept is very relevant to Tafsir Habi Ali because it often delves into these esoteric interpretations, revealing layers of meaning that you might not get at first glance. But then how do we know which is the correct interpretation? So it's not about choosing one over the other. It's about recognizing that both levels of meaning exist and they complement each other. Okay. The literal meaning provides the foundation, and the esoteric adds the depth and the nuance. So it's like having different lenses to view the same object. That's it. Each lens offers a unique perspective. Right. And together they create a more complete picture. Exactly. And that's the beauty of the Quran, is that it allows for this multi-layered understanding. Right. It speaks to people on different levels of spiritual awareness. Yeah. And offers guidance and inspiration no matter their background or understanding. It makes me want to go back and reread the Quran with a fresh set of eyes. It's beautiful. Paying attention to all those nuances and layers. The beauty of continuous learning. It is. Exploration. With that in mind, let's go to verses 30 and 31. Okay. Where the surah shifts focus to the children of Israel and their rescue from Pharaoh. Now, what struck me is that the source presents both an exoteric and esoteric interpretation of who these children of Israel represent. Yes, that's a key point on the surface level. The children of Israel refers to the descendants of Prophet Yaqub, alayhi salam, whose name was Israel. They were the ones who were enslaved by Pharaoh and then freed by the Prophet Musa, alayhi salam. Right, the miraculous parting of the sea. Exactly. But the source goes a step further and gives a symbolic interpretation as well. Suggesting that the children of Israel also represent the progeny of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it's drawing a parallel between the struggles of the Israelites and the challenges faced by the Prophet's family and his followers. It suggests this shared narrative of oppression, divine intervention, and ultimately the triumph of truth over falsehood. And this then ties back into that broader theme. It does. Of the special role of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Yes. In upholding and transmitting that divine guidance. Exactly. Why do you think the source chose to present this symbolic interpretation? So one possibility is that it's meant to highlight the universality of the Quran's message. The story of the children of Israel isn't just a historical account. It's a parable that speaks to the human condition, the struggle between good and evil, and the ultimate triumph of faith. By connecting it to the progeny of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it's suggesting that these themes are timeless and relevant to all believers. It's a reminder that those stories aren't just tales from the past. They're living lessons applicable to our own lives. Absolutely. And it also reinforces that idea of continuity and connection.
between the prophets and their followers,
Mm-hmm.
just as the children of Israel followed Prophet Musa, alayhi wasallam,
All right.
we're called to follow Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wasallam,
Yeah, Ahlul Bayt, alayhim
and the Ahlul Bayt, alayhim salam, as our guides.
It's like a chain of spiritual transmission.
Exactly.
Lineage.
Yes.
Stretching back through time.
Beautifully said.
And then there's this detail in this section
Okay.
where it mentions that the sky and the earth did not weep for Pharaoh and his people when they perished.
I remember that.
The source contrasts that with other instances.
Yes.
Where the sky and earth are described as weeping.
Right. Like for Yahya bin Zakaria alayhi salam.
Exactly.
And for Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam.
Yeah, it's as if their deaths were so significant that even nature itself mourned their loss.
That's the image that it evokes.
Right.
It emphasizes the spiritual significance of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. It suggests that their lives and their deaths held this cosmic importance that resonated beyond just human affairs.
And it's interesting because the source even mentions that the sky turned red for a year.
I know, it's a very powerful image.
That is.
After Imam al-Hussein's alayhi salam martyrdom.
It makes you pause and contemplate the magnitude of what happened.
Right.
And all of this circles back to verse 32, where the source emphasizes that the imams, alayhim salam, were chosen by Allah Azza wa Jal.
For their knowledge.
For their knowledge.
Yes.
That they are preferred over all others because of this divinely bestowed wisdom.
It's about true leadership.
Right.
And guidance being rooted in knowledge.
It's a powerful message, especially in a world that often prioritizes outward appearances and material success.
Over inner qualities.
Over true wisdom.
Exactly.
It's a call to recognize those who embody that true wisdom.
And to seek guidance from those who have been divinely appointed.
This is already opening up so many new layers of understanding for me.
It's a fascinating topic.
It is. I'm really eager to see where it goes next.
There's so much more to explore.
We've explored the clarifying book, The Blessed Night.
The esoteric meaning of the children of Israel.
And the special knowledge of the Imams, alayhim salam.
It's going to get even deeper.
I'm ready for it.
Let's dive in. Now let's shift gears a little bit and look at a contrasting image in the Surah, verses 43 to 49.
Okay.
Talk about the tree of Zaqqum.
Right, the food of the sinful in hell.
Exactly. And the source really uses some vivid language here to describe it.
Yeah, this part really stuck with me.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't just a description. It was like you could almost feel that torment.
The source describes it as this boiling oil that causes excruciating pain in the bellies of those who consume it.
And then they're forced to drink scalding water on top of that.
Right, which only intensifies the suffering.
Yeah, it's a pretty harrowing image.
It's definitely meant to evoke a strong reaction.
It is, and I'm wondering, is it meant to just scare us into being righteous? Or is there like a deeper message here?
I think it's more nuanced than just fear.
Okay.
Remember, the Quran often uses powerful imagery to make us think, to make us reflect on the consequences of our choices.
Okay.
So this description of Zaqqum, it could be seen as a reminder of the severity of turning away from Allah Azza wa Jal.
Right, of rejecting his guidance.
Exactly. It's not just about physical punishment, but also that spiritual anguish of being separated from divine mercy.
And the source doesn't shy away from those details.
No, it doesn't. It even describes the sinful being dragged into the middle of hell and having this boiling water poured over their heads.
It's not a pleasant image at all.
It's not.
And then, the source quotes verse 49,
yes,
where it says, "Taste you were indeed the mighty, the honorable."
Oh, yeah.
It's like a bitter irony.
It is in this life.
Right.
They might have enjoyed power and status, but in the hereafter, all of that is meaningless.
Yeah, their arrogance is exposed.
Exposed, and they're left with nothing but the consequences of their actions.
It's a powerful reminder that true honor comes from Allah, Azza wa Jal.
Not from worldly achievements.
Not at all.
And speaking of reminders, do you remember the story about Abu Jahl and the Zaqqum?
Oh, yeah. That one made me chuckle a bit.
Yeah, he was so confident in his denial of the Quran that he even mocked the very idea of Zaqqum.
He did. And he had a meal of dates and butter.
I know, it's funny.
Right? Calling it Zaqqum, all sarcastically.
It's almost as if he was challenging Allah Azza wa Jal.
It was.
And as the source points out, this incident actually led to the revelation of verse 37.63, which says, we made it a fitna for the unjust.
It's a cautionary tale, for sure.
It is.
Showing what happens when pride and arrogance blind us.
To the truth.
To the truth.
Exactly.
And it's a reminder to approach matters of faith with humility.
And an open heart.
Yes, definitely.
Now, in contrast to this graphic depiction of hell, verses 50 to 57 paint a completely different picture.
They do.
A beautiful picture of paradise.
This is the part I always find comforting.
Yeah, it's full of these images of peace.
Abundance.
And abundance. The source describes these gardens with lush vegetation.
Right.
Flowing springs, luxurious garments made of fine silk.
It's a scene of pure bliss.
It is pure bliss and contentment.
And I love how it mentions that the inhabitants of paradise won't taste death again.
They've moved beyond that cycle of life and death.
Right. It really highlights the eternal nature of the hereafter.
It does. This life is temporary.
Right.
But the next life is everlasting.
It makes you think about where you want to end up.
Absolutely.
Right.
And the source emphasizes that paradise isn't something we earn on our own.
Right.
It's a gift.
It is.
A manifestation of Allah's mercy and grace.
It's not about keeping score.
It's not.
It's about striving to be worthy.
Yes.
Of that love and compassion.
Exactly.
So then the source goes on to verses 58 and 59.
Yeah.
Which offer a reflection on the Quran itself.
Those are thought-provoking verses.
They are.
They emphasize how accessible the Quran is.
Yes.
How clear the message is.
Yeah, it's easy to understand.
And it challenges us to really pay attention.
Right.
The source quotes the verse that says, will they not then reflect upon the Quran, or are there locks upon their hearts?
Right.
It's as if the Quran itself is speaking to us.
Right.
Asking us to open our minds and hearts.
Yeah, to that guidance.
Exactly. It's like a direct communication from Allah Azza wa Jal.
Bypassing all the noise of this world.
Yes, and this connects back to that idea of Imam Ali alayhi salam as the clarifying book.
It does.
Just as he embodied the wisdom of the Quran,
right.
The Quran itself acts as a guide clarifying our path,
yes,
leading us towards that spiritual fulfillment.
And the source points out that the Quran was made easy through the tongue.
That we don't need to be scholars to benefit from its wisdom.
We can simply recite it, reflect on its meanings.
Share it with others.
Share it with others, and that sharing is such a powerful act.
It is. It can plant seeds of faith.
That can blossom in unexpected ways.
And sometimes that's all it takes.
Now, I was also really intrigued by that section where the source dives into a hadith from Imam Hassan al-Askari alayhi salam.
Yes.
Explaining the deeper meaning behind the children of Israel being rescued from Pharaoh.
Right. It goes beyond just the literal events.
Right.
And offers a spiritual lesson for all believers.
Right.
The Imam explains that Allah Azza wa Jal bestowed both worldly and spiritual blessings upon the children of Israel because of their acceptance of Prophet Musa alayhi salam and their obedience to his commands.
So it's like a demonstration of that principle.
Exactly.
And following divine guidance leads to blessings.
In this life and the next.
In this life and the next.
Right. And then he draws a parallel
to
the followers of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
And the Imams alayhum salam, suggesting that just as the children of Israel were favored because of their faith and obedience, the followers of the Ahlul Bayt alayhum salam can also receive those divine blessings and guidance.
It's a message of hope. It is.
Reminding us that we're not alone in this journey.
We're not.
We have a legacy of faith to draw upon.
Yes.
And we can strive to emulate the righteousness of those who came before us.
And the Imam explains
that
the worldly blessings bestowed upon the children of Israel included those material provisions.
Yeah, like manna and quails.
Right.
And even miraculous events like the parting of the sea.
Right. It's interesting how he connects the physical and the spiritual.
Right. They weren't just random occurrences.
Right.
They were signs of Allah's favor.
Yes, meant to strengthen their faith.
Exactly. And the Imam emphasizes that these blessings were a result of their acceptance of the wilaya, the spiritual authority of Prophet Musa, alayhi salam, suggesting that true success and fulfillment aren't solely dependent on material wealth.
They're not.
Or worldly achievements.
Right. It's about that connection with the divine.
Exactly.
And submission to his will.
And that resonates with what we've been exploring throughout this deep dive.
It does.
Recognizing the interconnectedness of the physical and the spiritual.
Right.
The exoteric and the esoteric.
And striving to live in a way that honors both.
Beautifully said. And the Imam concludes by reminding us that Allah Azza wa Jal can bestow similar blessings upon us if we fulfill our covenant with him.
Which includes recognizing the authority of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his rightful successors.
The Imams alayhum salam.
The Imams alayhum salam.
It's a call to action.
Yes.
Inviting us to reflect on our own level of commitment.
To our faith.
And strive for a deeper, more meaningful connection.
With the divine.
Yes.
Now,
let's move on to another concept.
The concept of the Quran speaking.
Oh, I'm really curious about this.
It's a fascinating idea.
It is.
The source mentions a hadith where Imam Jafar as-Sadiq alayhi salam states that the Quran has an image and a creation, and it enjoins good and forbids evil.
So it suggests that the Quran isn't just a collection of words.
No, it's not.
It's an active force.
A dynamic force.
Guiding and influencing our lives.
It's like a living entity.
Yeah, communicating with us on a much deeper level.
And the source gives an example of how the Quran speaks. It cites verse 29.45.
Okay.
Surely the salat prevents from the immoralities and the evil, and the zikr of Allah is the greatest.
Right.
Imam Jafar as-Sadiq alayhi salam explains that the prevention mentioned in this verse is the speech of the Quran.
It's like the Quran is directly addressing us.
Yes.
Calling us to account.
Urging us to choose the right path.
Right.
And the Imam further explains that the immoralities and the evil mentioned in the verse refer to the enemies of the Ahlul Bayt alayhum salam.
Okay.
While the zikr of Allah represents the Ahlul Bayt themselves.
So it's not just a general statement.
It's not.
It's directly connected.
It's connected to that struggle between truth and falsehood.
And it highlights the role of the Ahlul Bayt alayhum salam.
Absolutely, in upholding that message of the Quran.
Guiding humanity towards truth and justice.
Exactly.
It reminds us that the Quran's message isn't just theoretical.
Right.
It's deeply intertwined with their lives.
Their struggles, their sacrifices.
And their commitment to those divine principles.
And it's a reminder that we as followers are called to embody those same principles.
Right.
In our own lives.
Striving for that righteousness.
Standing up for justice.
Spreading the light of the Quran.
Through our words and actions.
This has been so rich and thought-provoking.
It has.
We've explored so many layers of meaning.
Uncovering hidden gems within the Quran.
And gaining that deeper appreciation.
For the role of the Imams, alayhum salam.
As guides and exemplars.
And it all comes back to that idea of Imam Ali alayhi salam as the clarifying book.
It does.
That embodiment of divine wisdom.
It's a reminder that the Quran's message is not static.
It's a living, breathing entity that reveals its secrets to those who approach it with sincerity.
And just as Imam Ali alayhi salam dedicated his life to clarifying those teachings,
we too are called to delve deeper.
We are.
Seeking that guidance, that inspiration.
And that connection.
And that connection with the divine.
You know, as we've been going through all of this, I keep coming back to that concept of Laylat al-Qadri.
Right, the night of predetermination.
Yeah, it's such a powerful idea, and the source has so much to say about its significance.
Especially for the Imams, alayhim salam.
Exactly.
This source really emphasizes the special knowledge they have.
Right.
Regarding this night.
Okay.
There's this one hadith from Imam Jafar as-Sadiq alayhi salam that really stands out. He states that the night of predetermination isn't hidden from the Imams alayhum salam.
Wow.
And that angels surround them on this night.
Okay.
Conveying divine decrees and revealing the events that will unfold.
So it's like they have this direct line to the divine plan.
A level of insight that's beyond our comprehension.
It really is.
And the source connects this to verses in Surah Al-Dukhan that emphasize the absolute power and knowledge of Allah Azza wa Jal.
Right. He's the creator and sustainer of all things.
Exactly. And this knowledge flows through him to the Imams alayhum salam.
It adds weight to the idea that their knowledge isn't based on speculation or personal interpretation.
It's coming directly from a divine source. And there's another hadith from Imam Jafar as-Sadiq alayhi salam where he explains that during Laylat al-Qadr, Allah Azza wa Jal issues decrees for every single matter.
Wow.
Each with its own distinct order.
It highlights the meticulous planning and organization of the universe.
It's mind-boggling when you think about the scope of it all.
It really is.
Every tiny detail, from the grand movements of the cosmos, down to the seemingly insignificant events in our lives.
Yeah.
It's all part of this divine plan.
It puts things into perspective.
It really does.
And then Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salam goes on to explain that these decrees are revealed to the Wali al-Amr alayhi salam.
Year by year.
Year by year, highlighting their role as these intermediaries between the divine and humanity.
Entrusted with guiding us and upholding divine justice.
Makes you realize the immense responsibility they carry.
It's a heavy burden.
It is.
But also a great honor.
Right.
And as we go deeper into these concepts, it's important to remember a key point.
Okay.
The knowledge revealed on Laylat al-Qadr is just a glimpse into the vast ocean of divine wisdom.
Right.
There's always more to learn.
There is.
And discover.
Right.
The source illustrates this beautifully by quoting Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam, reciting a verse from Surah Al-Dukhan.
Right.
Which emphasizes the limitless nature of Allah's words.
It's a good reminder to approach our faith with humility.
And a constant thirst for knowledge.
Right. Recognizing that our understanding will always be evolving.
Exactly.
As we journey deeper into these teachings.
Now let's shift our focus a bit.
Okay.
To another powerful concept discussed in the source.
Okay.
The Day of Judgment. Verses 38 to 42 of Surah Al-Dukhan deal with this day and the importance of divine mercy.
Okay.
The source shares a hadith from Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam, where he explains that on the Day of Judgment, no one can intercede for another except by the mercy of Allah, Azza wa Jal.
It underscores that individual accountability, doesn't it?
It does. Even the most righteous individuals can't sway the divine decree if Allah, Azza wa Jal, has willed otherwise.
So sobering thought.
It is reminding us that we are ultimately responsible for our own actions and choices.
But then the Imam goes on to explain that this concept of divine mercy applies specifically to Imam Ali alayhi salam and his followers, the Shias. So it suggests that they'll receive special consideration.
That's how the Imam interprets verses 41 and 42 of Surah Al-Dukhan, which state that on that day, no one can avail anything from a friend, nor would they be helped. Except for those upon whom Allah Azza wa Jal has mercy.
It's a very specific interpretation.
It is, and it's important to acknowledge that different schools of thought within Islam may have varying perspectives on this.
Of course, we always want to be mindful of that.
Absolutely. Approach these discussions with an open mind. Recognizing that diversity of interpretations. Now, the source also shares another hadith from Imam Jafar as-Sadiq alayhi salam that sheds further light on these verses. This one involves an exchange with his companion Zayd al-Shaham, and it takes place on a Friday night. Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salam is encouraging Zayd al-Shaham to recite from the Quran, calling it the night of the Quran.
It sets a very spiritual tone.
It does, a very reflective atmosphere. And as Zayd al-Shaham is reciting, he reaches verses 41 and 42.
Of Surah Al-Dukhan.
Of Surah Al-Dukhan, the same ones we were just discussing.
About divine mercy.
Exactly. It's like a divinely orchestrated setup for a deeper understanding. And when Zayd al-Shaham recites verse 41, which describes the inability of friends to help each other on that day, Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salam comments, it is them, referring to the adversaries.
So those who oppose the Ahlul Bayt, alayhim salam.
Exactly. They will face the consequences of their actions. But then he contrasts this with his interpretation of verse 42, which speaks of those upon whom Allah has mercy. When Zayd al-Shaham asks about this verse, the Imam responds, we are the people upon whom Allah Azza wa Jal has mercy.
It's a very powerful statement.
It is affirming their special status as recipients of that divine mercy.
And he goes on to emphasize that they are the ones whom Allah Azza wa Jal has made an exception for.
And that they are needless of others.
It speaks to that spiritual self-sufficiency.
Yes, that closeness to the divine.
It really is inspiring to hear such conviction.
And certainty.
In their words.
It makes you want to strive for that same level of faith.
It does that trust in Allah Azza wa Jal.
And the source reinforces this interpretation by sharing two more hadiths, also narrated from Imam Jafar as-Sadiq alayhi salam. Both of them clearly identify the people in verse 42.
Those upon whom Allah Azza wa Jal has mercy.
As the Ahlul Bayt alayhum salam and their followers.
It's like a recurring theme throughout these hadiths.
It is highlighting their unique spiritual station in Islamic tradition.
And it's a thread that weaves through all the interpretations we've talked about today.
Connecting back to that idea of Imam Ali alayhi salam as the clarifying book.
Exactly.
This has been such a rewarding deep dive.
It has.
We've explored so much.
From the symbolic language of Surah Al-Dukhan
to the profound insights of the Imams, alayhum salam.
On the night of predetermination and a day of judgment.
It all circles back to that importance of seeking knowledge.
Right.
Reflecting on the Qur'an's message, and striving to embody the principles of Islam in our lives.
It's a beautiful reminder that the Qur'an is more than just words on a page.
It's a living guide.
Offering that timeless wisdom.
For those who seek it.
And just as Imam Ali, alayhi salam, served as that beacon of knowledge.
He too can strive to illuminate our paths.
And then the paths of those around us.
With the light of the Qur'an and the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt, alayhum salam.
Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through Surah Al-Dukhan.
It's been a pleasure.
We encourage you to continue exploring these concepts.
To delve deeper.
And to really delve deeper into that rich tapestry of Islamic tradition.
May this knowledge bring you closer to Allah, Azza wa Jalla.
And guide you towards a path of righteousness and spiritual fulfillment.